This is Research Like a Pro, Episode 15, When to Hire a Professional. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, a Genealogist Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show today. I'm Nicole, and I'm here with Diana Elder, my wonderful mother. How are you today, Diana?
I'm great. Thanks, Nicole.
All right. Well, before we start with our topic today, which is how to know if you need to hire a professional, I'm going to read a review from one of our listeners. Thank you, Kathy, for sharing this review. She titled the review, Enjoying the Episodes. She says, I bought Research Like a Pro for my Kindle app and really enjoyed reading it. So I decided to check out your podcasts, and I'm enjoying those as well. I have been researching my family history for more than 40 years, but you do a great job of explaining the fundamentals, and we all need a refresher course on how we should be approaching our genealogy research. I like your conversational style on your podcasts, and you've provided excellent tips on how to be a better genealogist. Thanks. Well, thank you, Kathy. And we just wanted to remind you that if you want to leave a review, you can do that on Stitcher or iTunes, or you can just leave a comment on one of our blog post episodes associated with that episode. And if you leave us a question, then we'll try to answer those questions here in the podcast. All right, let's dive into our topic today. So for today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing Diana and asking her why and how to hire a professional genealogist, because she spends most of her time that she does when she's working on client research. So let's dive in. So Diana, what are the benefits of hiring a professional? Why would somebody want to do that?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of genealogists think to themselves, I just want to do it all myself. I don't want to hire anybody else. I want to learn how to do it and do it myself. And I felt like that in the past, but now that I'm doing client work, I've really realized that if you do hire a professional genealogist, it can save you time, energy, and money because they are really proficient in the area that they're working in. And do you really want to, spend years becoming an expert in a certain area that someone else already has? And you could just hire them to do a little bit for you and then maybe take it from there. And the other thing that's really beneficial is hiring a professional, because when you read their research report and the work they give you, you're going to learn from that. So you'll learn some methodology, maybe some record types, things that they use in that specific area. So you can actually use it as a learning tool, but in the meantime, you will have made some progress in your brick wall. And it actually does save you money in the long run because you're not having to spend, travel time going to a location or spend a lot of money on conferences learning. You can just get something done and then move on.
That's a good point. I remember when I first saw a client research project that was done for an ancestor I was researching, and it had been commissioned by a cousin, and I actually found it in the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers Library. Anyway, when I saw the report, it was so helpful because all the sources were cited, and I knew I could trust the research. It seemed very credible. I really learned a lot about the records and just why the professional had researched in certain records. And it was clear that they had expertise in British research. So I felt like that report really I learned a lot from their writing. And I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things professionals can do for you also. So not just like a traditional researching a brick wall. There's a lot of things now that professionals do. So let's just talk a little bit about some of those. One of the things that I'm asked to do is to deal with documents. Well, actually, I don't translate documents, but I do a lot of document retrieval at the Family History Library. There are some things that are still not digitized and they're only on the microfilm there. So I have clients who've asked me to go up and look in the land records and get a digital image of that and send that to them. And then I have also requested researchers who live near the National Archives in Washington, D.C. to go and pull a land application file or a pension file for me. And of course, that is a reasonable charge, usually under $50. And of course, that's a lot cheaper than me flying out to Washington, D.C., paying for a hotel and travel and such to do document retrieval. So I really love that we have this wide community of professionals who live near repositories and can go get things for us. Now, somebody might be researching in, say, Germany, and you've got a difficult document and it is in the old handwriting, not to mention it's in German, and you just really can't make heads or tails of that record. And so you can hire a professional just to translate that for you, abstract everything out. And so that could be a really great way to use a professional's expertise. And maybe you've got something and it's in English, but it's really long. And again, it's kind of in difficult handwriting, maybe 1700s. It's a long court case or a probate file, and you just don't want to deal with it. And you could hire someone who specializes in that and let them transcribe the entire file or court case for you. So those are just some ideas of what a professional can do for you as far as documents.
Yes, I would love to have somebody transcribe all of my old documents. It takes a long time.
It does.
Yeah. So when you need someone to go retrieve a document from the National Archives for you, how do you find somebody for that?
There are a couple different ways. You can go on the website for the Association of Professional Genealogists, and when you join that website, you put in your specialties. And so there will be people that will say, will research at the National Archives, and then you can contact them that way. You can search on there for any localities. They'll say you are researching in Maryland, and you can find someone whose specialty is Maryland research. So that's one good way you could do it. I believe the National Archives might have a list of researchers that you can pull from. A lot of times repositories will do that on their websites. They'll have a list or a little tab that says research, and they'll have people that are researchers there. I was just looking at the Georgia Archives page and noticed a list of researchers who live nearby and are able to search at the Georgia Archives. So go to the archives web pages, see if they have a list of researchers, or try the website of the Association of Professional Genealogists, or just do a good old Google search. Researchers who research at the National Archives, and hopefully people that do that will have a website up, and Google will be able to pull in some of those websites. So we have some really good tools nowadays with the internet and finding people that can help us. Another good thing is just to, use your networking. If you know someone who's a professional genealogist, maybe ask them and say, who do you use if you need to get records at some of these different places? Because professionals have a good networking system. We can't all be all places. We have to know a lot of people that can help us pull records.
So true. So what are some more things that professionals can do with you as far as beyond the documents, going beyond just pulling a document or transcribing?
One of the things that people will do is to help you organize and analyze what you already have. You might be feeling completely overwhelmed with boxes and boxes of papers and documents. You may not know what's important and what is important. And so a professional could come in and help you sort through that, get them analyzed, help you put things in order. I know there are people that do that professionally, and that could be exactly what you need. And another one that's huge right now is DNA analysis. So if you have got your DNA results back and they aren't what you expected, or maybe they are what you were expecting, but you don't know what to do with them. There are a lot of professionals now who are becoming very, very competent in doing DNA analysis. So that is a huge market for professionals now.
And even professionals who aren't really focused on DNA are starting to use it, because it seems to me like when somebody has a difficult problem and they ask a professional to solve it, DNA could be a really helpful tool.
It is, and we have to use DNA with regular genealogy research. For example, I just helped my sister find her biological father. She was adopted when I was 6 years old, and we had to use her DNA results as well as traditional genealogy to get in there and try to figure it all out. And so, you're going to have, if you hire a professional to do DNA, they're going to know both things, DNA and traditional genealogy research. So anyway, I think DNA it's really, really helpful, but it does have to be used in conjunction with documentary evidence.
Mm-hmm. So what else can we do beyond asking a professional to kind of look at our DNA and organize things? What are some other areas of professional genealogy?
Well, some clients need to find heirs. So forensic genealogy is another part of professional genealogy, and this is generally descendancy genealogy. There was an individual perhaps who left a sizable amount of money, and the genealogist has to trace all the heirs, and that research has to be able to hold up in court. And so that, of course, has to be done really well. It has to be generally done by a credentialed genealogist. And so finding heirs, also military repatriation. I have a friend who's currently working full-time doing that, working on figuring out remains of individuals who died in World War II and connecting those soldiers with families. So there can be unclaimed property, there can be mineral rights. So that can be a whole nother area for professional genealogy. But then a lot of my clients, anyway, just want to learn about their family. They don't know anything about research, but they want to know the stories. They want to know the connections. They want to know who their immigrant is. They just want to know about family. So I think that is really, really a large clientele right now, people that want to just get to know the stories.
Do you do a lot of writing of stories, and in addition to kind of solving problems?
I do. I kind of do, I don't know, maybe 30% of the writing of the stories. I have clients who have done research but would like it all written up in sort of a story form, but also completely cited. And so I will do that. Anytime I write, I always include the source citations so that, it's really evident where all the information came from. So I am finding that a lot of people are wanting to just know about their roots, wanting to know their families. And it can be people who have no genealogy background and people who've researched for years that just want it all written up. So another great way, maybe, you're not comfortable with writing, and so you'd like to hire someone to help you finally get your family history research into a book.
Cool. What about somebody who's an experienced genealogist, but they've come across a difficult problem? Do you have any clients like that?
I have, yes, I would say yes and no. Sometimes people have been researching for a while, but their research consists of attaching hints on an ancestry tree. So they'll have an ancestry tree that goes quite a ways back, but they're just really not sure how accurate everything is that they have attached to that tree. And so they will hire me to go through their tree and make sure everything is accurate, all the generational links are correct, and perhaps work, on a brick wall that they are stuck on. So I do have a lot of that type of work. But I do know that there are people. I worked on a project several months ago and for a client who had done quite a bit of research and then just ended up in, I believe it was North Carolina, really difficult time period in the 1700s and a lot of people with the same last name, and just got completely overwhelmed with trying to sort this out. And so decided it was time to hire some help.
That's interesting. So most of the time when I think about hiring a professional, I think about I want someone to help me solve those brick walls, to find those documents that I haven't been able to find. But it sounds to me like most people that you're working with haven't been doing that much research, that they're just kind of beginners and they don't really know how to do very much. Well, let's move on to some more areas of what professionals can do for you. Have you ever heard about professional genealogists who take people on trips or help them research on site?
Yeah, that's getting to be a really fun thing too. They call them heritage trips. And so if you're interested in doing that, you would join a group who are perhaps going to Ireland, and the professional researcher would plan the trip and take you to repositories there, maybe the archives and churches, and they would have it all figured out for you so that you could just go and do your research and not have to set things up. And I know that there are quite a few of those, either individuals or companies, that are doing that now. So that's a really fun idea to think about, doing a heritage trip and maybe hiring someone to help you. Because there again, you may think, oh, I can just do that all on my own. And of course you can do that on your own. But I think when we get over into different countries, there are so many different rules that apply to searching in the archives and the repositories, and someone who's really good at it and has been there a lot can save some time and frustration. I've heard lots of stories about people showing up and then not being able to get in because it was closed, or, just not knowing the hoops to jump through to be able to research in some of those repositories that are in different countries. So a heritage trip might be a really great way to spend some money on professional research.
Right. It sounds like if you have more experience and you want to do some research on your own, this is a good kind of middle ground. You get to go do the research yourself, but then you kind of have a guide there with you, leading you along and helping you access the records that you need. What about along those same lines? Do you or other professionals offer any kind of coaching or helping people who want to research on their own?
Absolutely. I offer this service, and I know others do as well. And I actually think this is a really fun thing to do because someone could hire me for maybe just 2 hours, and I would look through what they have and then give them lots of different ideas on what they can do moving forward. I could help them do a research plan. I could look at their records and say, hey, did you notice this? This would be an excellent way to go with your research. Often someone else looking at our work sees things we just did not see. And coaching and consulting from a professional could be a really beneficial way to just get your research moving again if you feel really, really stuck. And then, someone could come back in a few months after they've done the research, or even a few weeks, and say, okay, this is what I found. Help me to fit this together. And so working hand in hand with someone, I could get them going on a research problem that they were stuck with.
That sounds like a great way to kind of get some expert advice without having to pay for an expensive 10-hour or 20-hour research project. So it's a good idea. All right. We talked a little bit already about writing and doing professional writing for your clients. Do you have any other thoughts on writing reports or family history books that you want to talk about?
Just a note that writing is something that some people really struggle with and can be really daunting to think of writing up all your research and putting it into a book. But it's important to leave behind something from our years of research. And so there are lots of professionals that offer that service where they will take your research and really look through it, write it all up for you, do more research as it's needed, and help you just produce a beautiful book. So definitely a lot of older people, I should say, want to leave a heritage behind. And so that's a great thing to do with a professional. And the research reports, having someone just write up your research can be very helpful in knowing what you've got and how to go forward. As we've talked a lot before in this podcast, it's the writing that often makes sense of the research. So if you don't want to write it yourself, you could give a professional all of your research and say, just write this all up for me so that you can see clearly what's been found and get ideas of what to do next. And I have a client project that I'm working ongoing with a client, and the work is all excellent research for her ancestors in Ireland, but she wanted me to do the writing of it. And so that's been a really fun project for me, and I've enjoyed it so much. And she is loving the results and seeing what I put together as I'm writing up her research.
Yes, often writing is a difficult step, and one that isn't often completed. So that's a great idea to hire somebody and just give them all your research and say, here you go. This is what I found. Can you kind of make some connections and write it up and give me some next steps? So we talked about a lot of different things that a professional can do for you, dealing with documents, organization, DNA analysis, forensic genealogy, learning about family, breaking through the brick walls, lineage applications. Did we talk about lineage applications?
We did not talk about that. So there are lots of professionals that know the ins and outs of how to get to be a member of the Mayflower Organization or Daughters of the American Revolution. There's lots and lots of different organizations that you can connect to if you can just get your ancestry back to a known individual in one of those organizations. And they do require really good documentation, so you can hire a professional who's well-versed in exactly the kind of records you need for that application to be in a society. And I know a lot of people want to be part of those societies, but just don't quite know how to get to the point of joining or getting their research in good shape for that.
Mm-hmm. One of my colleagues at the Genealogy Society here, the Pima County Genealogy Society, is a researcher for the DAR, and she does a lot of help with people who submit their application, but they haven't proven all the links correctly. And so she'll go and help them try to finish that. And I think she does a lot of it for free. So, and she's like a certified genealogist. So I think that's really interesting that the volunteers will sometimes help you even at no cost. But I think most of the time it's required that you pay for that kind of assistance. So that's an interesting one to consider if you're wanting to join a lineage society. All right. Well, now that we've talked about all the different things that they can do for you, let's talk about how to locate a professional genealogist. So what kind of criteria should one look for when hiring a professional?
The first thing I think is that you want to feel really comfortable with your choice. So it's good to take a look at their website, look at reviews, testimonials, look at work samples. Try to find someone that you feel fits in with your personality and with what you want. You want to make sure that their pricing matches what you're willing to pay, and their time frame matches the time frame you need. So it doesn't hurt to contact several different professionals and get quotes, to even talk on the phone to them, see how they answer your questions, get a real feel for the professionals that you're interested in, and then make your choice. You have to know that there are lots of individuals that are professionals, and then there are professional companies that do research for you. So let's just talk a little bit about the difference, because I'm a part of both worlds. I do private genealogy work. And, as you know, we have our familylocket.com website where people can go directly to the website and put in their query. And typically what happens if someone sends me a query, I will email them back and say, oh yeah, I could do work on this project in 3 months or next month, whatever my time frame is. And I'll typically say, I'd love to talk on the phone with you about this, and we'll set up a phone meeting for 15, 20 minutes. And sometimes on the phone, the interested party will say, yes, I would love to have you go ahead and do this research, and then we'll move forward. And then sometimes they'll say, well, I will think about it. And then I don't hear back from them, which is totally fine, because I realize that not everyone wants to go forward. Sometimes they just are interested in the process, want to get an idea of how it works, and then they decide, no, not right now, or maybe I'll try someone else. So that's how private genealogists generally work. You contact them, they'll contact you, and you work through it. Now, if you want to go with a company, there are a lot of big companies out there, and I actually contract with a company. And with the company, you have a whole team of people working on your projects. So you've got a researcher like me, and then you have project managers, and you have people who are editors and are looking at the project after the researcher turns it in. So you have a whole team. And that is why if you go with a company, they are typically 2 to 3 times the cost of a private researcher. You're paying for more people to look at the project and get more eyes on your research problem. And that is why you're going to pay more. So a lot of times people want to know, what is the difference? And that is typically the difference. And the same thing with companies as private individuals. You can send in queries to all the different companies and get quotes and talk to project managers and maybe get a free hour of them looking at your work. It doesn't hurt to just shop around, just like anything else, and see what's out there and see what you feel comfortable with, who you feel comfortable with. So there's so many good companies and good private professional genealogists out there. There really is somebody that can help everyone.
Now, what about credentials for genealogists? Are there ways to find out more about that?
Yeah, a credential means that a genealogist has had to go through a process. So anyone listening to this podcast knows that I'm an accredited genealogist through ICAPGen, which is the International Commission for the Accreditation of Professional Genealogists. And I had to work for 2 years to become credentialed through a series of testing and submitting work. And then there's another major credentialing organization, the Board for Certification of Genealogists. And they also have a credentialing program where you submit your work samples and it's reviewed by peers, by a board. And then you're able to use the letter CG after your name as a certified genealogist. So the question comes up, do you need to hire someone who's an AG like me or a CG? Well, not necessarily, because there are plenty of other good professionals out there who are not credentialed. But having said that, a credential does ensure that someone has had to do some work to make their research skills come up to a certain level of competence. So there are other things that people could have done to be qualified to do professional research. They could have a degree from Brigham Young University, offers a bachelor's degree. They could have a certificate from the Boston University. They could have joined the Association of Professional Genealogists and signed the ethics agreement there. So take a look at their website or in talking to whoever you are thinking of hiring for professional genealogy work, and see what their credentials are. See what they have done to become well versed in the genealogy that you want to hire them to do.
Great. So you can look for people who are a part of the Association of Professional Genealogists, or look for AGs or CGs. What do those credentialing bodies do to help when there's a problem between the client and the professional?
Great question. So the Association of Professional Genealogists, as well as ICAPGen and the BCG Board for Certification, they will all do a mediation. So let's say you've hired a professional and then they come back and you're not happy with what they did with your 10 hours that you contracted with, and you don't want to pay them the rest of their money, but they want the rest of their money because they worked those hours. And so then you would go to mediation. And if they were a part of one of these organizations, there would be an independent review of that. And they would be able to say to you, yes, the researcher did what you asked them and they did a good job. Or they could say, no, that was not well done. You don't need to pay. So it gives you a little bit of confidence that you will have something to resort to if you don't feel good about what you get in return for your money.
I think that's a really important thing to consider. Thanks for sharing that. All right, let's talk about some ways to work with professional genealogists. What are kind of the things that people should do before they hire somebody?
Number one is to know exactly what you want them to do. So have a good, clear research objective in mind. A lot of times I will get a client project and it's really warm and fuzzy. I want to know all the stories, which is great, but I need to have a person to start with on the stories. Do you want to start with grandma? Do you want to start with great grandma? Do you want the maternal line, the paternal line? So have in your mind clearly what you need. And then the genealogist is going to ask you to give them everything that has been found. So you'll need to find all the records that the family has already located and have those organized. I ask that people have them digitized and uploaded to a file on Dropbox. And you could not do this, but then you might be paying the genealogist to do work that's already been done. You don't want to pay for something that you've already found. And the genealogist is not going to have any idea about what you've already found if you don't show them or tell them or give that to them. It can also be really helpful to write up a little summary of previous research. It doesn't have to be fancy with citations and all that. It could just be a bullet pointed list. I really appreciate it when clients do this for me just as clearly as they can to write up everything that they've already done and give a clear focus to the project. If you can think of all of this in advance, it will really help the genealogist. I also ask that a client share the family tree. And often this will be an ancestry tree, or it can be a database. And that helps me and will help any professional genealogist to put the pieces together of the family. We've been working on our own trees for years, and so we clearly know all the relationships. But when someone new is looking at your family, it really helps to have a family tree so they can jump back and forth between families and relationships, and as they find records, try to make sense of where everyone fits in. And then finally, just keeping that communication open is really helpful. So make sure that whoever you hire is going to give you updates and that they answer your emails. They are willing to chat on the phone with you if you have further questions. I like to think of it as a partnership. I'm doing my part and then the client is doing their part. And then together we come together and figure out lots of great things for the ancestors of the client. Finally, this is kind of a tricky one. You've got to be open to the fact that you may have negative results. The reason why you're hiring a professional often, if it's a brick wall, is because it is difficult. And they may do 20 hours of research and be closer to the goal, but they may not have attained the goal. And you've got to be really open that that's a possibility. And you should be leery of any professional that says, oh yeah, in 20 hours, can help you find every immigrant ancestor on your family tree. Because quite honestly, as we know, Nicole, that is not going to happen, is it, in 20 hours? So you have to be open to the idea that you may get some negative results. I have worked on projects. I have one in Tennessee, and this is through my company for a very common name, very, very common name. And it was early 1800s, 1700s. It took me about 3 projects to make a breakthrough and to get the ancestor back to North Carolina and to his family.
Wow. How long were each of the projects?
About 10 hours. Yeah. And people had worked on it before me. So, not to discourage people from how difficult this can be, but I think it was probably 40 to 50 hours of research it took to make the breakthrough. So anyway, this is a dedicated client that really wants to get the answer. But like I say, if it's a really common name, that can be very difficult. I believe the name was James or John, and then the last name was very, very common. But, building on each research project, I was able to finally make the jump to the next generation, which was very exciting for the client. And now I'm working on that generation. So, it's all a process. As soon as we find one ancestor, then we have it opened up to find more.
Yeah, that's exciting that you were able to make the breakthrough. When I just started talking with a new client the other day, I was talking with him about the possibility of not being able to find the answer that he wanted. And he seemed open to it, but it's tricky, when you're talking about these things, like when it's back so far in the 1700s or, when records are sparse, to kind of get a clear idea of what we will be able to find. It's so unknown, but you can't find out until you do the research. So if you're not sure, I guess you can just hire somebody to do a little bit of research and see what's out there. And then the researcher will usually give you a list of future research suggestions. So I think that's a really, really beneficial thing to get out of the project, because if there is no future research suggestion at the end of it, then you'll know maybe not to hire that one again, or anyone if there isn't anything available. But those suggestions are really key to knowing if you want to go forward and do a repeat project again, like you were saying, when you repeated that project a couple times and finally found the breakthrough.
Absolutely. And that is something to look for in a professional genealogist to make sure you are going to get that. So let's just talk about what you should expect when you hire someone as a professional. First of all, you should have a contract, and that should be a thorough contract protecting both the client and the professional. So make sure that you're getting something that clearly spells out how this is going to work, and that addresses things like privacy issues and the mediation, the time frame, the pay. It just needs to be upfront, very clear how this works. So you'll want to have a good contract, and a professional genealogist should have that available and ready for you. And you should be getting, at the culmination of the project, a research log with all the searches that the professional did, both negative and positive. You should get a list of all the websites checked, books checked. It should be a very clear, easy to understand research log, and a written report which details the research and analyzes it so that you understand it. The research log is all well and good, but as we've talked about before, it's in writing it up that the conclusions are made. And you'll want to make sure that you get a report that you can read through and come back to over and over again to understand what research was done. And like Nicole, like you said, that report can teach a client how methodologies and records, how research can be done. So it's really beneficial. And that report should have your suggestions for future research and a summary of the findings. I always do a summary of the findings and bullet points so that a client wouldn't have to read through the entire report again. They have just a one-page list of a summary, so they can quickly go through and kind of refresh their memory, remember what it was that was found with the project.
Now, what if somebody doesn't want to hire a professional researcher, but they want to learn how to become better at research so they can just find it themselves?
Well, that is why I wrote a book called Research Like a Pro, a genealogist guide, because I totally recognize that I wanted to learn how to do it myself. And that's why I went through the accreditation process, because I knew that there was more I needed to do to be a better researcher, but I just didn't know what it was. And so, the book can be very helpful. And we also offer a study group, and we offer our e-course, which we'll be opening registration up for that in the future. It's closed as of right now, but we will be opening that up again. And anyone who's interested in the study group or e-course, we have a special email list. If you go to our website, familylocket.com, you can sign up on that and be the first to know when registration opens for either of those two groups. So I've been really excited to be able to share my research methods through the book and the e-course and the study group, because I love to teach and I really love the idea of helping other people become better researchers.
Well, thanks for all that you've taught me. I'm really learning and growing through all of the study groups that I've been doing with you. And from, helping you with the book and all of that, I feel like I'm becoming better. I'm excited to finish accreditation, hopefully in the next couple of years. And it takes me a lot longer since I have my children to take care of too. But even just this morning, I was working on my Tennessee locality guide, and that's one of the states that I hope to become accredited in. It's in the Southern States region. And it's amazing how just learning all about the history of the location can just open up so many more avenues of places to look and jurisdictions to search within. So learning about the locations has been one of the most eye-opening parts of the Research Like a Pro process for me. So we'll have to talk about that again in the future. I think we'll do another episode about location and how to make a locality guide.
I think that would be a great idea. I know a lot of people have had questions about that, not quite sure exactly how to do that or what to put in that. So definitely a good idea for an upcoming podcast episode.
Well, thanks for telling us all about that today, about professional genealogy research. And if you are interested in hiring us, then go ahead and go to our website, familylocket.com/services. And there you'll see a list of all the different services that we offer and how you can hire Diana. And sometimes I help with those projects too. Like I said, I have a client project I'm working on right now, but my time is more limited. So definitely come and see if you can hire us at Family Locket Genealogists. And we are excited and ready to work with you on your difficult projects. So we'll talk to you guys again next week. Have a great week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Hi, everyone. That was a fun episode. And since recording it, we have decided to open up registration for our e-course. So if you're interested in signing up now, it's available. Go ahead and go to familylocket.com/shop. And then you can see the Research Like a Pro e-course is available to be purchased. The price is $125. And starting on Wednesday, we will be having a sale for the last week of Family History Month. So the cost will be just $99 from October 24th to October 31st, ending at 11:59 Mountain Time on Halloween. So we hope that you guys, if you've been thinking about buying it, you'll go ahead and do it then. Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro